take two. This will be Friday, February 13th, and we're going to get into the Greek mythology in my regular class. Information up there as far as the spelling bee goes. How the applications do. See, flying through all of this, blah, blah. And once again, to remind you, because it might come in handy, that if you raise your hand, I'm probably not going to call on you, because pretty much all of your questions will be answered with, we'll get to that. I broke down yesterday and ended up calling on kids, and every time I did, it was pretty much answered with, we'll get to that. I understand you have questions. Just hold on to them, and we'll get to that. So don't get upset when I don't call on you. And then the other part was, those of you who already have issues with B points, keep in mind that this would be the one time that you can probably lose more, because all of a sudden you get excited and the neurons pop, and wearing the foil helmet and stuff like that. So making good choices from there. Alright, you guys, I believe we got through the first part of this. We're going to do a quick review and see how well the information is still in your head. And make sure you have them all matched up to the correct places. So as we go through and do from here, if you don't remember all of the names, that's fine. I certainly understand. The names are big and long and weird, and it's going to throw you off. So if you don't know them, that's fine. We'll see how close we can get. Our first one, chaos. Which category does chaos go into?
All.
God. It goes into all of them. And why does chaos go into all of them?
Because he's everything.
Because it started. What did it start off as?
A big ball of pudding.
There you go, the swirling ball of nothingness. We made the ball of pudding. What flavor pudding?
Chocolate.
Chocolate's delicious. So we have the chocolate pudding, and eventually it splits to form the very first two gods, Gaia and Uranus, and we'll get to that. And then we got to Kronos. And where do we put Kronos?
Oh, God.
It is a god. Nice and done. Kronos is the one over here above Keziah. That's fine. Kronos is the one over here above Keziah, who looks like he's dolphing in a miniskirt, so he can go and hit the little people that are down there.
Cool.
If you want to just pull over a chair, if that's easier, you're welcome to. Good
My
stuff.
name is Jeff.
So now, you pretty much don't have to answer it for anything. You should be good to go. And so that would be Kronos, who also had the bad habit of eating babies, but who doesn't? And we'll get to his story hopefully next week if we can. And then we get to Hades. Which category does Hades go into?
Gods and places.
Gods and places. And Hades, once again, over here above Keziah, who's still in a good seat, is the guy in the dark outfit there who was all grumpy. He was not evil, he was just grumpy and goth and just didn't like talking to people. Plus, what does he name the place where he lives?
Hades.
Hades. So his name is Hades, H. Hades, and he lived in Hades because he was not created. Underworld goes in places, because the underworld is the nickname for
Hades.
because we can't say the name of the place, so Underworld and Hades are both the same place. That brings us to Titans. Category?
Gods.
Correct. All of the posters you see in here are pictures of Titans. Because Titans were big and super powerful and special and better than us, we referred to the Titans as gods. But pretty much Titans and gods are the exact same thing. Mercurial goes in
Good places.
other stuff. It's a word that comes from Greek mythology. It goes to Hermes, the guy over here doing the little Heisman pose. And so it's his Roman name, which was Mercury. And so it was coming from that. It's just a word that means to change quickly. It goes with sciencey stuff. And then we get to Olympians. And that would be?
Gods.
It is correct. Olympians would be the gods who live on Mount Olympus. The big posters, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's 6 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 with that one right there. Those are the Olympians. There can only be 12 of them at any one particular time. And then you also have the small posters all along here, which would be the 12 Olympians plus others. There's like 15 posters there. And then the ones in this poster thing here, we have the 12 Olympians plus a few bonus people in that one too. 12, which is roughly the number of points you would lose for being on your phone while I'm going over Greek mythology, while we're picking out random numbers. I wasn't yelling at you. I'm sure you're perfectly fine. I'm sure there's another kid who's just learned a lesson. Atlas, we'll go to that one. And what category does Atlas go into?
Gods.
And?
Other things. Wait.
And things. Atlas was both a god and a thing. What special ability does Atlas have? Super strong. He was the Hulk of all of them. Would go around smashing things and folding up little cars into origami and stuff like that. He was also the one that holds the sky on his back as he goes along. And so usually we see him in a picture of the globe on his back, but that's ridiculous because the world's not round, it's flat like a dinner plate. But we'll get to that story too. And did we get through Styx?
Mm-hmm.
So which category does Styx go into?
Places.
Because what did Styx become?
A river.
Poisonous river.
So back over here, in the little picture with Hades, you have the green river that's right there next to him. That would be the river Styx. She started off as a Titan and then had a wish granted to become a river, but because she was a horrible, nasty, evil, mean person, she became a horrible, nasty, evil river. And so she became the river Styx, which was the river of death. I don't believe we got to Side, did we?
No.
That's where we got to. So now we'll have a chance to have you vote and see if we're in the correct spot, so we can continue from there. Side! Raise your hand if you go gods, places, things, other stuff. Just voting for all of them,
Yep.
covering your bases. Scythe is a thing. Those of you who have seen the picture of the Grim Reaper, when he has the stick that has the blade that comes off of it, sometimes called a sickle. A sickle is just a scythe with a handle on it. But a scythe is the big long stick that has the handle coming off of it. Up here with Hades, no scythe. He was not the Grim Reaper. But the guy next to him who looks like he's golfing, the thing he's using to golf, that's a scythe. He's getting ready to go down there and chop little people into little tiny pieces. And so he actually used it to kill his father. But that's the story that we'll get to. Killing parents was a pretty popular pastime in Greek mythology. Then again, so was killing children, and also just killing people in general. They like killing. Very popular. And so we'll get to his issues coming up. Gia! And see, does Gia go into gods,
Sure.
places, things, other stuff? I believe that one had the least amount of voting total. You had a 50% chance of getting it right. Gods and places. Because Gia was also Mother Earth. So she was a god, you could talk to her, but she was also the earth, you could stand on her. And so she was all the places, and she was a person. Excuse me. And then we get to Uranus. Gods, places, things, other stuff. He was both a god and a place. He was Father Sky, the big blue yonder that's up there above us. So you could talk to him. He was an actual being, but he was also something that birds flew through. So he was the sky, and he was a person. That brings us to Nike. Nike, gods, places, things, other stuff. Nike was a god. Nike was the winged goddess of victory. She was a female, she was a god, and she was the one you would pray to if you wanted to win at something. She was the god of being victorious, so the god of victory. She was the only Greek god to have wings, and she had wings like an angel, the big flappy things in the back. And it was thought that she could lead people to victory. She was friends with Athena, the girl that's up here in this picture. It's a weird picture, by the way. Athena was not a midget, nor is that a giant horse. It's supposed to be perspective, for those of you who have done art, where the horse is up close and she's far away and she's pulling the horse backwards. It ends up looking like she just has a sword and she's stabbing a giant horse in the mouth. It's just a weird picture, but I'm not even sure why she has a horse in her picture. She's not really connected to horses. But that would be Athena. She was friends with Nike. In the 1970s, when there was a shoe company that came out that started making athletic and tennis shoes for the first time, they wanted people to know that if you wear our shoes, you will be victorious in everything you do, and you will always win. This shoe company is Nike. So they named themselves after the god of victory. That was how sure they were. They're like, we're naming our company after the god of winners. Plus, what is the symbol for Nike?
Swoosh.
That swoosh is supposed to represent, well, what is the one thing that Nike the god has?
Wings.
It's supposed to be a wing as it swooshes forward. That's supposed to be a wing swoosh coming up. So that swoosh is supposed to be Nike's wings guiding you to your victory. So that's part of the project. Mr. Brovicast, did you make that up? Nope, that is actual Nike and Greek mythology history. Who'd have thunk it? Trident! Gods, places, things, other stuff. Trident, a thing. It's the three-pronged pokey stick over here with Poseidon, three-pronged pokey stick.
Oh,
One
Means
over here.
three and then
Nicely
yeah,
done.
something
To
like
cut holes in something. Nicely done. And then also it's right here on the middle of the little crack in the middle. The trident. It was what he used to control water, and as Bogart pointed out, tri meaning three and dent meaning to put a hole in things. And he had the trident, which allowed him to control water, and more importantly, whenever they had barbecues, he could cook 3 hot dogs at once. And so he was
Why not?
good at
Like,
that.
Who's the hand?
like,
Sacrifices,
ooh, I know.
gods,
No,
places,
no,
things,
yes,
other stuff.
maybe.
I could go back and forth between things and other stuff. Sacrifices are when you give something up for somebody else. Many of you sacrifice your points when you make poor choices. I just want to talk all the time. Or I want to just go over and hit this kid. Or what? You're sacrificing your points and giving them up. Greek mythology, we have sacrifices, but not the sacrifices where you go and take someone and like stab them and like rip their heart out and go thump, 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 thump. The Greeks did not believe in human sacrifice. That was ucky and a bad choice. They did have you sacrifice something. And if you've read your Percy Jackson stories, they actually do a pretty good job with it there. Do you know what they sacrificed in Percy Jackson?
No. There's,
Like it.
Sheep or
No.
chicken?
Weedy?
No.
Animals.
Closer. Food in general. Whenever you ate a meal, you had to give up part of your meal to the gods. In Percy Jackson, when they're in the little dining hall and they take food and throw it into the fire, that was the sacrificing. And so in Greek mythology, you sacrifice food to the gods. Are you okay with that, Carson?
Yeah, I didn't know if you were gonna let me check.
Oh, go ahead.
Cause you know in Percy Jackson, in kind of the beginning, you know that one that like flies.
Uh-huh.
Is that
That's a harpy.
Flies.
And we'll actually talk about those later on. Those are
I thought that
cited.
was
Nike? No, definitely not Nike. Harpies are evil creatures. Harpy and Nike was a good creature. Cyclops.
Yeah.
Cyclops will go with gods, places, things,
oh wait.
other stuff. Cyclop. I put it in other stuff because it was a creature, but you could put it in gods because they were actually the older brothers of the gods. And we'll get to that. There were only male Cyclops, and they were all immortal. And what makes a Cyclops look different than the others?
What eye?
One big eyeball in the middle of
They
it.
have 20 vision.
So that was the Cyclops. In Greek, and we'll cover this more later, the word Cyclops in Greek does not mean one-eyed, it means wheel-eyed. Because you have like a bicycle, a tricycle, a unicycle, and so that CYCL means circle or wheel. And so there's this thought that they had like a giant wheel smacking before them before. And we'll get to their story coming up too. Next up we have Olympians. Olympus. I thought. Olympus goes in gods, places,
Yes.
things,
Yes.
other stuff. You guys made that pretty easy. Olympus was the mountain where all the gods got to hang out. Only 12 got to live there. And what do you call the god that gets to live there?
Zeus.
Olympians.
Olympians. And so you can only have 12 Olympians at one time. Nicely done.
You told us that history.
I know. It's weird how I just can't remember that. Prometheus. Gods, places,
Maybe.
things,
Don't know.
other stuff.
Maybe.
Prometheus
God.
was a god.
Hey.
He was the god of thinking and geniuses, and was also the god that could see into the future. He would sit there and go, no, 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 no. You're talking, you're going to lose points. What? Why would? Oh, you got me. And so he could look into the future and know that you were going to make poor choices and stuff like that. And we'll get to him. He has some fun stories. He makes the bad choice of going against Zeus and getting tortured big time. Don't
Oh
make
yeah, I
Zeus-
remember that. I
don't
saw
make
it.
him
I
mad.
watched the cartoon.
Iris, gods,
Ooh,
places,
maybe.
things,
I don't know.
other stuff.
Uh,
You had a 50% chance it goes in. God's things. And Iris was the rainbow god, and she was also what we got part of our eyeball named after it. The part of your eyeball that is
Iris.
there you go. The colored part, the one that has color to it. Rainbow goddess, colored part of the eye.
I got that right.
Or Nikki. And our last one, Clotho. Gods, places,
Oh, I don't know.
things,
Ooh, sure.
other stuff.
Achoo!
Gesundheit. Clotho, our last god. Clotho had 2 sisters, Lachesis and Atropos. And the 3 sisters, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, were known as the 3 Fates. And the three fates were the ones that controlled when humans died, or even when gods died. From the Hercules movie, they were the three sisters that cackled the whole time and traded like one eyeball among the three of them.
Oh, the
In-
taxi drivers?
In Percy Jackson, they were the taxi drivers that showed up there. And so those were the fates. They will show up in a couple of our stories too. Now, I'm going to have you put the notebook to the side. We're done with that. And the blue sheet and white sheet come in. Let me get past this one. On the white sheet, you're going to go not to the family tree side. Go to the side that has all of the gods on it. They're going to give you some background information. On that sheet, you're going to see it has a whole bunch of the gods, but it also has the Greek name and the Roman name. The Roman name is because there were two different cultures, the Greeks and the Romans, and they both used the same gods, but had different names for them. Much like we have English and we have Spanish, and so you can have two different words for the same thing, an English word and a Spanish word. It was the same thing Greek and Roman-wise. Greeks came first, so I studied them as far as they're the main ones. So on that, what we're going to do is use that and then go to the blue sheet. In the top left-hand corner of the blue sheet, the first thing we're going to get to is there's 10 words on there that connect to Greek mythology. We're going to see if we can figure out where these words come from as far as Greek mythology goes. So it's going to require you to use the white sheet to look at the different names, both the Greek name and the Roman name, and see if we can get a connection to figure out where each of these comes from. The first one is jovial. Can you figure out which god we're going to get the word jovial from the different names that we have listed on there? And then so we have to look at the Olympians, the important titans, stuff like that. That'll all help you out. Focus. Carson. Hebe? Why do you say Hebe?
Because Greek name is
Juventus? You're very close. It's actually where we get the word juvenile from, because she was the god of young people. And so you get the word juvenile from her, which is close, but not quite. But a good guess. Weedy?
Aries.
Aries?
Yeah.
Why do you say Aries?
I don't know.
It's a solid answer. I'm going to have to go with no if you can't back it up. I like your try. Travis?
Artemis?
Artemis. Why do you say Artemis?
Because I'm taking a guess.
Same thing she does, but I have to go with no if you can't back it up.
Back it up.
By the way, it's a god you've all heard of. It's just not the name you've heard of, but it's a god you'll know. Jack?
Well, I just have something to kind of say.
Uh-huh.
If juvenile just means like a young kid, then how did it turn into?
We'll get to that.
Oh.
Like it?
Zeus.
Why Zeus?
Because it's J-O-B and it's Joe.
Nice one. Zeus's Roman name was Jode, or sometimes known as Jupiter, but his Greek name is Zeus. And what was Zeus's main job? What was Zeus known as?
The king.
King of all the gods. He's the one that's over here, the very first one I have listed in the blue and the yellow. Over here, he's above Bergman. Hard to see the reflection on it right there, but he's holding lightning in his hand. And then in the big poster, he's over here in purple, once again holding lightning in his hand. He was basically the king of all the gods. Ironically, what jovial means is not what you would expect. So it's ironic that we get the word jovial from Zeus. Do you know what jovial means?
Happy.
Nicely done. Jovial means happy. Why would I say it's ironic then that we get this word from Zeus? Chinkles?
This doesn't count as a question, right?
Nope.
Because he's not happy.
You
I
are
don't.
correct. Almost every story we get into is Zeus. He is angry and grumpy and mean and unleashing fury on somebody or getting in trouble or trying to get out of trouble. And we're not going to have hardly any story where he is happy and friendly and outgoing. Now, don't get me wrong. He is friendly and he makes lots of friends, but he is seldom a happy man while he makes those friendships. So it's ironic we get the word happiness from the god Zeus. And the reason it sort of connected to him was the idea that him being on top, if you're on top of the world, it sort of felt like Zeus, because Zeus was on top of all the other gods. So they made that connection that, oh, you look like you're on top of the world, everything's going for you, you must be just like Zeus. And like, oh, that's ironic, because he's not a happy guy at all. Khan?
You
said he got in trouble.
Uh-huh.
He was the top god. How was he getting?
This magical thing they invented called a wife.
Oh, okay. Never
Yeah. Those women, they always get mad when you get friendly.
I know.
And she couldn't kill him because he was a god, so hence the getting angry all the
I
time.
thought you meant like someone else.
No, just.
So
I
she
mean,
killed the baby.
other people got mad at him, but he didn't care. Just Harry. You, Lisa, you ready for the next one? Cereal. And where you got? What's your guess on cereal?
Demeter,
Why Demeter?
because her Roman name is Ceres and she's the goddess of the harvest.
Is correct. Demeter, who was the god of grains and wisdom. She is the one over here in brown who's hugging the grain and the wheat. Over here above Berg, she's the one sitting on a throne of wheat. And then in the poster here, she is in yellow. It looks like she's trying to jab that guy in the head. That's Hades. More importantly, she is hugging wheat. Pretty much every picture you see, she's hugging wheat. She was the god of growing crops. Mr. Brody asks, why is that a very important thing? That's kind of a stupid job. Because if she didn't do her job, what happened to humans?
Die.
Yeah, so apparently that's a pretty important thing. Because as soon as things stopped growing, we did this thing they invented called dying. And so we would pray to her quite a bit. She was actually one of the most important gods up there. And so, and what is the definition of cereal, by the way?
Milk and food.
Food that comes from?
Cereal.
Excellent. Food that comes from grain, meaning wheats and corns and stuff like that. The trick being, the cereal you eat now does not actually connect to cereal. Because the cereal you eat now is mostly sugar covered in sugar with little bits of sugar and some chocolate to make the sugar go down better. But when they first came out with cereal, it was just the idea of a big pile of like oat bits. But oat bits don't taste very good. When you scoop them up with your milk, you just go. And so parents would put some sugar on there, and you're like, and so they put more sugar on there, and then took out the oaty bits. And they're like, ooh, kids like this. And then the company said we could make more money if we took out the oats and put sugar in there. So now we just cover sugar with sugar and call it cereal, although it's not really cereal. I'm assuming you're all excited to do the next one. I want to do more learning. Connor, volcano. Nicely done. Hephaestus. And why do you say Hephaestus?
Hot puppy.
Because his Roman name is Vulcan.
Nicely done. And what was he the god of?
Fire.
Fire and metalworking for the most part. Now with Hephaestus, the number one way of mispronouncing his name is not realizing what these two letters sound they make together. What sound does that make together? Yeah.
It's like my name.
Like a telephone. Like Jack Phillips. Last name. Yeah. And so it's the PH. Too many kids see that and they see a P and a T and they say, his name is hepatitis.
My real name is
Hepatitis is a disease you get when you don't wash your hands.
Oh yeah.
Hephaestus is a disease you get when you anger the gods. So Hephaestus is completely different. He is, I'll move this back to make it easier for you guys to see. Hephaestus is the guy that's over here. The thing that's in front of him is an anvil. If you're not familiar with an anvil, it's the big heavy thing that you drop on rabbits' heads on Looney Tunes. And also he has a,
Scroll.
no,
The running thing.
He's
where
very
you
great.
hand it off.
crutch.
Oh.
He was the only god to be crippled, so he's wearing a crutch. Same one over here, he's above Sue. That's a fire that's next to him, and then that's a forge, which is the big metal anvil, and then he also has a crutch, although you can't see it very well here. And in this picture, no crutch, because he's sitting down, but then he has an anvil right there next to him.
Wow.
Much like Nike was the only god to have wings, Hephaestus was the only god to be crippled. The reason he was crippled, and it's a story we'll get to, is because he made his dad mad, and his dad chucked him out of a window. And we learned from that story, don't make parents mad when they have superhuman strength, because bad things happen to you. And so we'll get to that with Hephaestus.
I think I know what his dad was.
Hephaestus eventually becomes the god of fire and metalworking. He makes all the weapons and all the metal for the gods. A volcano, it was thought that Hephaestus had his forge inside of a mountain. So as he was doing all the work and the metalworking, eventually the heat from all that would build up inside of the mountain, and then what would happen to the mountain? And so they thought anytime they saw a volcano, that was the home of the god Vulcan, or the god Hephaestus. So basically a volcano just meant a mountain of fire, because it was connected to him along those lines.
He kicked your door.
Then we'll get to
Hard worker with a bottle. What's the name creator?
Yeah.
Oh, Trident.
They'll figure it out
Who is
eventually.
it?
The same kids.
Oh.
Alright.
Ed.
We will pick up with Mercurial next week, and we're going to start getting into some of our fun stories.
She doesn't like me.